gross mismanagement took its toll, and Acclaim Entertainment, one of the earliest video game companies to get financially effed, pardon the acronymed profanity, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, liquidizing its assets and bringing an end to an era in one of the widely regarded worst developers and publishers in the industry's history. From its inception in 1987 to its documented downfall on September 1st, 2004, Acclaim was like any other gaming company. Its eye was fixated on the green influx of wealth. The only difference was that, from all appearances, Acclaim just didn't have the right leadership to motivate its troops to holding to a standard. It was a fairly sloppy setup that was all about maximizing profits. And the easiest way to do that? Well, just ask Ray Kassar about E.T. You license a movie. In the days before the internet, the only real way to tell if a game was good or not was to fork up your allowance and hightail it to your local retail. You had to buy the game, it was basically a gamble. Now Acclaim built a reputation on two things: making a ton of licensed video games, and making a ton of licensed video games that were anything but critically acclaimed. And we're not just talking about movie licenses here. No, television licenses, comic book licenses, board game licenses. Yeah, who's up for some Othello? Quality control became a serious issue when the stunned cinema-savvy consumer became suckered into buying games like Total Recall, The Simpsons, South Park, and Batman Forever, expecting a decent translation of their source material and instead getting a lazy excuse for a sale. The next hour of proceeding to fumble through the trash to find that always elusive receipt would prove devastatingly ineffective. Believe me, my usual fatiguing attempts at eloquence too often are as arduous on my own ears, so in layman's terms, most of Acclaim's output were critical failures. But that's not to say it was all bad. I mean, the Derided Syndicate published some truly great franchises, including the Burnout series before it was taken over by EA, the brilliant handling of Double Dragon 2's North American port, and one of their greatest successes, Turok, another licensed game, believe it or not, an internally developed shooter that would at least briefly put Acclaim's ill-fated financial future out of thought, if not the pocketbook, and become one of the first N64 titles, along with GoldenEye later in that same year of 1997, to push what was possible graphically and gratuitously on the machine most considered as the cutesy console for the kids. The racing and sport genres in particular would be notably kind to Acclaim, Extreme G and Revolt both burning rubber, and the over-the-top Crazy Taxi's PS2 and GameCube ports being handled with particular proficiency. But shady business behind the scenes, including a handful of lawsuits against the company, would only worsen Acclaim's already gaping wounds, injuries that, however you want to look at it, stemmed from the pure and simple fact that they were endorsing an overwhelming amount of less than ideal product. Like other disparaged license-dependent game companies, the maligned LJN has well earned its right to ridicule. Acclaim's heart just wasn't in video games, or at the very least, its careless organization and poor marketing and business moves did itself in. A whopping $100 million in debt, the company had no choice but to declare bust, one of the first of a handful of 80s-era companies that, due to anachronism or just due to old age, would be forced to hang up the towel, including Midway only years after Acclaim's insolvency, September 1st, 2004. Of course, there is still at least one arcade-era publisher today that has not felt such a fate and instead outlived the pack. You want to know all about Activision? Well, I'll tell you. Another day in gaming.